Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start our video with a story about how a simple favor can turn into an absolute nightmare. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button, smash the like if you enjoy the content, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a juicy story. Dental appointment. I recently left an office job where I used to work alongside a few colleagues, including a receptionist named Kate. She didn't have a car, so occasionally I'd drop her off at home, even though it was a bit out of my way, about 15 minutes in the opposite direction of my place. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, Kate messaged me out of the blue with some small talk. I thought it was nice that she wanted to keep in touch, but soon after she mentioned needing a dental appointment for a filling and asked if I could see my husband, who's a dentist. My husband works in a busy practice and doesn't take new NHS patients, so I was a bit surprised by her request. When I asked him, he mentioned he was fully booked and honestly wondered how she was even going to get there since it's quite far from where we live. Despite this, Kate insisted she wanted to be seen and said she would take the train. When she asked how much it would cost, I made the mistake of saying not to worry about it, thinking it would be a small job and my husband was fine with helping out. After telling her he was fully booked, she continued to message me, practically harassing me for an appointment. I kept explaining that I don't handle his bookings, but she didn't seem to care. When she started complaining about her teeth hurting, I told her to consult an emergency dentist. She said that there was a waiting list and that she was desperate. Eventually, my husband agreed to see her on a Friday after hours, but only if she could be there on time since his nurse would be staying behind just for her. I let Kate know about the appointment, and she said she'd try her best to be there on time. This didn't sit well with me, so I emphasized that she had to be punctual because people were making special arrangements for her. When I told my husband about her lukewarm response, he suggested I drive her there to ensure she wasn't late. I felt bad for adding to his workload and reluctantly offered to give her a lift, which she quickly accepted. However, she demanded a specific pickup time, to which I responded that I'd collect her at a time that worked for me. On the day of the appointment, I picked Kate up in the middle of intense traffic. She didn't even thank me, and I found myself apologizing for the traffic while getting stressed out. We made it to the appointment on time, and my husband ended up removing her tooth, which was in bad shape and close to being infected. She thanked him briefly, and then we left. No offer to pay, nothing. My husband, who's a bit awkward in these situations, had only planned to charge her £20 just to cover the cost of his nurse staying late, which is a fraction of what an emergency private tooth removal would normally cost. On the drive back, Kate had the audacity to comment that my husband had given her a free treatment. I corrected her, saying I'd let her know the cost since the treatment had changed and it was done after hours. She grudgingly agreed. Stuck in traffic, I started feeling more and more irritated, especially when I mentioned how this wasn't how I'd planned to spend my Friday evening. Her response, "You and I both." When I pointed out that my husband had done her a favor, she just responded with, "Me too." Turns out she hadn't even tried to see an NHS dentist. After dropping her off, not a single thank you was said. I later discussed it with my husband, and we decided to invoice her £45. It was still a bargain for the treatment she received, but I also felt bad since I know £45 can be a lot for someone on a receptionist's salary. She responded by saying she'd pay by the end of the week, when it's payday. But her tone made me feel like the bad guy. So am I the problem here? This isn't a friend, this is a person who used you shamelessly for all she could, and you said thank you. May I have another? Stop being a rescuer, OP. And our second story. The manager wins. I witnessed this yesterday at my local supermarket. The memory still brings a warm glow to my evil black heart. I've tightened up the dialogue to keep it short and humorous. There was a lot more of the usual bickering, but I hope you'll understand. So I live in a rural area of northern Australia. The local town has a total of 2 supermarkets for general groceries. The next nearest place to shop is a further hour's drive down the road. Generally, people get along around here, although I did have one run-in before, link in comments, because I can't work out how to do it here at this place. I was at the checkout with my favorite cashier. She is superbly fast and efficient at her job, as well as being, in her own words, a total babe. putting my fortnight's groceries through when I hear a raised voice at the far end of the checkout lines. The young lady serving me muttered something along the lines of, "Oh God, here we go again. She's back." I asked her what she meant, and she informed me that the noisemaker was the local Karen, notorious for coming in and making a scene to get her way. The staff absolutely hated her. Well, Karen was in full swing, and so I settled in for a bit of gargoyle-style voyeurism to watch the show. She apparently had a bee in her bonnet about something not being stocked correctly, the sun being up too late, or a staff member breathing air or something. Either way, she demanded to see the manager, right now. So the senior manager came out along with the floor manager, both looking like they were completely done with this crap. The manager tried to greet her, but couldn't even get a word in before Karen let fly with a tirade of abuse, demands, and noise. Lots of noise. To emphasize her point, she swept an armload of groceries, not hers, mind you, off the nearest checkout and onto the ground. Things broke. Eggs, jam jars, and similar. The owner, who had only just purchased these things, looked murderous. She was a middle-aged lady with a small child at foot who looked absolutely done with life, and I very much doubt could have afforded to replace what was lost. Being a good Aussie mom, she began to wade in on the discussion with a view to breaking Karen's face. The rest of us shoppers were by now gathering around. This was getting good. Unfortunately, the floor manager intercepted her before she could make good on her promise, and gathering by the hushed conversation, I gather all losses were to be replaced. In the meanwhile, the discussion between Karen and the senior manager was coming to a conclusion as the manager shouted, "That's enough! You will not come in here and bully my staff or other customers. You will pay for the goods you have damaged, or I will call the police, and most importantly, you are banned. Now get out!" Karen snorts, "You can't ban me. That's illegal." Crowd, "Oh, no, it's not." Lots of laughter. Manager, "Well, feel free to call your lawyer if you want to dispute things, but until then, get out." Karen, realizing she may be in the crap here, "But where will I go to shop then?" Manager, "Go to the other place across town. I don't care, but you're never coming in here again." Karen, "But I can't go in there. I'm not allowed anymore." Absolute raucous laughter from the ring of shoppers. We're such a caring and compassionate lot. Even the young lady serving me had to cover her face as she, coughed. Definitely not laughing, I'm sure. So Karen bursts into tears because karma's a bee best served hot. Gets escorted out by the managers. Hopefully we get to never see her again and she enjoys her hour's drive to get groceries in the future. I laughed all the way home. The craziest thing is that she had already got banned from one store for her behavior, most likely, and yet refused to change her ways at the new store. And our next story. That's why I'm not allowing my cousin with special needs to swim in my pool. My husband, 32, and I, 26, bought and moved into our first house about 4 years ago. We have a pool in our backyard, and we love it. We have family gatherings at our house fairly often. I have a large family, and we're all very close with each other. We love having all the kids over to swim, and we welcome them over pretty much whenever they want. Well, one of my cousins, 38, who lives out of state, has only been to my house maybe only a handful of times. Her daughter has special needs. She, 12, has Fragile X syndrome, FXS, and has the mental capacity of a 4-year-old. She also has severe bladder and bowel control issues. She also needs constant supervision because she has a habit of screaming and biting herself if she gets stressed out. I love both of them to pieces. I love when they do visit, but when they do, I cover the pool and keep it off limits. When I first moved in, she had an accident in the pool. Even though she was wearing a pool diaper, it caused a big mess, and we had to hire a cleaner who ended up having to drain the pool. After that accident, my husband and I mutually agreed that it wouldn't be a good idea to let her swim here anymore. She's more than welcome to visit, but we just make swimming off limits. Well, my cousin tends to get offended whenever she feels like her daughter's singled out, so to avoid making her feel that way, we just cover the pool and make it off limits for everyone for the time that they're with us. Every time she comes over, she asks why the pool is covered. We lie and say that there's a filter issue and we're waiting for the pool cleaner to come fix it. Everyone else knows the truth and covers for us if she were to ever ask. Well, a few weeks ago, she called me and angrily confronts me. Turns out my aunt, her mom, threw me under the bus. She accused me of never loving her daughter and hate it when they visit. I told her that was completely untrue, but she wouldn't listen. She said that I'm a despicable POS for not accepting her daughter and should be happy to clean up after her. I told her I was sorry that I made her feel that way and that I didn't mean to, but I just didn't feel comfortable having a child with severe incontinence swimming in the pool. Then she said that they're never visiting ever again. My husband agrees with me. The rest of the family's understanding, but feel that I should be more understanding of her struggles. Edit. I've seen a lot of people ask how much and how long it took for the pool to get cleaned and refilled. The full service was about $550, and it took about 2 days to drain, clean, and refill. I've also seen a lot of people asking why I didn't make her pay. Unfortunately, her daughter's care is very financially demanding and requires financial aid from the government. Because of that, we didn't feel right about asking that of her. Plus, my husband and I are fairly financially well off, so the cost wasn't really an issue for us. Also, a lot of people are suggesting to buy a kiddie pool just for her, and ideally, it'd be a great idea. Unfortunately, though, I think my cousin would still feel like we're singling her daughter out, considering nobody else would be using the kiddie pool. You made reasonable accommodations in a way not to single out a child or make them feel it's their fault. And our last story. Great revenge on a crappy neighbor. In the 6 years I lived here, he has tried to convince us our lawn was actually his. When it didn't work, he got angry. Parked a most likely stolen boat in my yard we had to have towed. Driven and parked his truck in my yard. Tried to cut down living trees in my yard for firewood. Chopped wood in my yard and told me it was so his yard wasn't a mess. Trespasses and has tried to tell me he's volunteering with the HOA and thus has permission. We live in an HOA that's thankfully real chill. Every time I had an issue, I called them and made an official complaint. They sent someone out to talk to him, and that would be the end of it for a bit, till he was back on his bullcrap. Eventually, I ended up calling the cops while he in my yard, drunk, screaming at me. After that, several things happened rather quickly. Since it escalated to police, he was no longer in good standing with the HOA. If you're not in good standing, rent goes up by several $100s. It won't decrease until the board votes to let him back in. That doesn't look like it'll happen. They're rather pissed he was claiming to do volunteer work for them when he wasn't. It's also in our HOA rules that you can't use a chainsaw on your property without permission. Usually no one cares, but he was chopping down communal as well as trees on other residents' lots, so they came down on him hard. And finally, the pettiest of revenge. Now that it's getting warmer out, I've had my windows open. I also love to play music while I clean during the day. Yesterday, he was doing yard work or something. I put my Bluetooth speaker in my kitchen window and played some very loud MSI. Then I moved on to Missy Elliott and metal covers of Disney songs. When I could tell he was getting really annoyed, I got extra petty. Anyone remember that song Switch by Will Smith? I played that 3 times in a row. Then I turned the music off. I could see the relief on his face. I waited a good 2 to 3 minutes, then I played Switch 3 more times and laughed to myself when he went inside looking pissed. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.